La Playa de los Muertos. A Corsair novel. Douglas Pratt. Manta Press. La Playa de los Muertos is a work of fiction. Any names, places, characters, and incidents are products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, either living or dead, events or locales, is entirely coincidental. Copyright 2023 by Douglas Pratt. Cover art by Ryan Schwartz. The cover designer. www.thecoverdesigner.com. All rights reserved. 4. They were only a block and a half from the beach, but the cinder block buildings cut most of the breeze off, and the afternoon sun beat down. Caleb watched the New Yorker remove his hat and wipe the sweat from his forehead. Without the cap, Caleb noticed the man had a seriously receding hairline. He replaced his hat as the woman exited the boutique with a small paper bag bundled under her arm. Caleb sighed as he realized she'd only stopped to shop, and there was no hidden agenda. For a minute in the farmer's market, he thought she appeared scared. She rushed out of the crowd. Her speed picked up on the street, but now nothing she did seemed to indicate she knew she was being followed. By the time she strolled by Caleb's location, her tail closed the distance between them. She continued down Madero, where she crossed the road to head north again on the intersecting road. When Caleb first arrived in PV, he memorized the streets throughout the romantic zone and into the next barrio, 5 de Diciembre, in case he needed to leave the city quickly. This highway, which cut right through the old town, intersected Rio Quale, and ended up running parallel to the Malecon and the shoreline. Most of Puerto Vallarta was a pedestrian city. Even though it spread over 500 square miles, most of the residents stuck to their neighborhoods. If they couldn't bike or walk it, they might take a car or ride share to the big box stores close to the Marina District. The city built large sidewalks along the bridge, with stairwells leading down to Isla Quale, a municipal park constructed on an island where the waters diverged around it on both sides before it came back together and fed into the river. The girl took the first set of steps, descending into the park where rows of makeshift stands combined with permanent structures made up the flea market. Most of the trinkets were identical to what vendors sold elsewhere. When she reached the bottom of the concrete staircase, the woman walked west through the crowded booths. Shopkeepers called to her as she passed, begging for her to look in the shack. She'd been here before, Caleb noted, watching her ignore the constant beckoning directed at her. Unlike a lot of the long-term visitors, her demeanor glazed over, where many offered polite shakes of the head, and even a few terse conversations. Those were mostly Canadians, Caleb thought. This girl seemed American, even if the color of her skin left it in question. She carried a "don't give me shit" scowl that didn't seem to hinder the shopkeepers from hounding her with masks and beaded bracelets. Caleb often brought Amanda down to this section of the park. It was off the beaten track, but his daughter loved walking through what she called the cat garden. They had designated the park as a hub for art, in part because of the role it played in the most famous movie filmed here, The Night of the Iguana. The film, starring Richard Burton and directed by John Huston, seemed to put Puerto Vallarta on the map with Hollywood. Puerto Vallarta prided itself on the movie, honoring Houston with a sculpture in the park. As Caleb passed the director sitting perpetually in his director's chair, he saw Amanda's cat garden, which was a flower garden, amid an array of sculptures under the canopy of trees. Feral cats wandered the plot. Most dropped off by individuals Caleb considered heartless, a serious indictment from a man who once killed people without mercy. The animal problem grew large enough that the city posted signage in English and Spanish, warning of fines for disposing of animals there. Through the maze of trees, Caleb caught sight of the woman again, but the blue hat was gone. She changed dresses. No, she just slipped one over the top of her other dress. Smart girl. But not smart enough. The Giants fan was still on her tail. Now he knew she was aware of him. As they continued deeper into the park, the crowds thinned. If the New Yorker planned to make a move, Caleb guessed it would be soon. As if he read Caleb's mind, the man picked up his pace. The Giants fan pulled out his phone, tapping out a quick message as he pretended to stroll casually. Caleb knew the direction the woman was going, Puente de la Iguana, the stairway bridge that crossed over the northern branch of Rio Quale. Caleb took the right fork at the next intersection. He'd walked along here with Amanda plenty of times. Like the rest of the streets of PV, he committed the paths to memory. This one circled around the trees and connected back with the other sidewalk. It was a longer route, but he broke into a sprint, charging past the tiled mosaic path to get ahead of the girl. When she walked past him, her eyes locked with his for a split second, and she smiled warily. "You're being followed," Caleb warned. The smile disappeared. "What?" she responded with a look of surprise. Caleb continued by her, and she turned to watch him. If Caleb looked back, he might have seen the sheer terror crossing her face when she realized the man in the giant's hat wasn't the only one following her. The man was searching his pockets. "Looking for this?" Caleb asked, lifting the knife he'd pickpocketed off him on the street earlier. Turning to look at him on the steps, the New Yorker's face twisted as his brain registered recognition. He stared at the knife in Caleb's hand. The blade remained sheathed, and the man considered for a second if he could overpower Caleb. Footsteps clipped along the pathway as she ran toward the bridge. "Fuck," the Giants fan cursed, and he charged through the trees around Caleb. Corsair's wrist flicked, and the knife whipped through the air as Caleb unsheathed it and hurled it in one motion. When the blade missed the man by inches, Caleb bolted after him. Puente Iguana didn't have the steepest stairs in Puerto Vallarta. The architects designed them for more casual walking. Each stair was about 1.5 feet deep. The girl had a head start. She was in good shape with long legs, and she ascended quickly. As the man in the blue hat struggled up the steps, he lost ground. He wasn't in the best condition, and Caleb caught him by the waistband of his shorts, jerking him back. Shocked, the New Yorker fell onto his ass before rolling down one step. "I'm pretty sure I can outrun you," Corsair pointed out, as he grabbed him by the shirt and lifted him up against the rail. The American scowled at Caleb. Indignation seethed from him. Most people must treat him differently. "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" Corsair demanded. "I'm just walking," the other man lied. His head twitched as he glanced up the stairs to see the girl vanish over the top into Gringo Gulch. Caleb twisted around, carrying him by his shirt in a circle, and tossed him to the ground. "Yeah, I'm calling bullshit," the former assassin declared. "Who have you been texting?" "Nobody," he denied as he pushed up to his feet. "Give me your phone," Caleb ordered the man. "Or what?" "Or I throw you off the bridge," Corsair explained matter-of-factly. The New Yorker's face flashed concern. This man just threw him around like he was luggage, and he'd lifted the knife off him expertly earlier. Still, the man carried a brashness with him. He wasn't accustomed to people on the street confronting him. The Giants fan whipped a small chrome Ruger 22 pistol from his pocket. "Couldn't bring your gun down, huh?" Caleb questioned. "You had to have flown down from New York, right?" The man didn't respond. "I pegged you as some kind of hitter, aren't you?" Corsair asked. "Mob or something?" "Not military for sure." "Where'd you get that piece of shit?" "What do you want?" the man asked, wondering why Corsair got involved. "Your phone." "Asshole, I have the gun," he snapped. Corsair stepped forward, swifter than the man expected. His hand caught the barrel of the gun, swinging it down. The 22 fired, and the bullet chipped into the concrete step, spewing grains of concrete up. Corsair rammed his forehead into the man's face, shoving him back against the railing. The 22 tumbled from his grip into the gorge. Resignation creased over his brow as he realized his weapon was gone. He stared at Corsair, waiting. "Your phone," he repeated, and the man pulled it out reluctantly. By now, he figured the girl had escaped. He needed to get out of this situation before it got worse. Caleb took the iPhone and glanced at the screen. It tried to open, but the facial recognition didn't respond. He rotated the screen toward the New Yorker. The cell phone chirped as the camera captured the man's features, matching them to its memory. As Corsair turned the phone to him, the man lunged forward, driving his shoulder into Caleb. Both slammed into the railing, as the hitman was obviously attempting to shove Caleb over the edge. Corsair dropped the phone and drove his right elbow down into the man's clavicle. The New Yorker grunted as the point of Caleb's elbow connected with the muscle in the man's thick neck. While the blow stung, it did little to hurt him. Caleb reached behind his attacker with his right hand, grabbing the hair on the hitter's head. A flash of blue flew through Caleb's peripheral vision as the giant's hat dislodged from atop the man and, caught in the wind, tumbled over the edge of Puente Iguana. Caleb wrenched the man's head around as he jutted his right foot between the man's legs. The swift motion to the right, coupled with the sweeping of his legs, twisted the man away from Corsair. In the split second that the burden lifted off Caleb, his fists moved like lightning, striking the man in his solar plexus and throat nearly simultaneously. A guttural grunt emanated from the hitter as he tried to charge forward. The next punch from Corsair slammed him against the rail, and the man toppled backward over the metal barrier. Caleb peered off the bridge below, but the trees hid the body of the giant's fan. As he glanced up the stairs, he saw no sign of the woman. With a swooping arm, he scooped up the man's phone and jogged down the stairs.